Hey there, folks. Happy Saturday to you. Hope you're having a fantastic weekend so far. Coming at you with this week's market wrap video. Going to go ahead and get right into this here. So, if you read my blog post before the market opened, I had indicated that I was potentially looking at raising the caution flag, getting a little more bullish if we had some continuation in the markets from the previous day on Thursday, where we had a pretty nice reversal bounce off of some potential key support, technical support. And if we could see some follow through, that may have been a reason to lift the caution flag and get a bit more bullish. That didn't happen. So the caution flag remains in place with the color orange. We've got some big events coming up next week. We've got FedEx, which is reporting earnings. That could be a big thing for the transportation sector, which isn't looking all that hot. We've got the Brexit vote, which we'll know the results on Thursday. And polling numbers actually have taken a turn for the worse. Looks as though more people are leaning towards exiting the European Union. So, if the polling numbers continue to come in weak, into the open on Monday, that could give us a reason to actually gap down on Monday and could take us through those key support levels in many indexes, and that would be problematic for the market. So the caution flag remains in place. No one knows exactly how the market's going to react to this Brexit vote. If they do wind up exiting, is it already priced in? Do we get a bounce, a reversal bounce off that? And if they don't, if they don't exit, then do we get a big snapback bounce because that fear is now gone away? I mean, it could be a very interesting, volatile week next week. We'll see how this all plays out. We also have Janet Yellen speaking on Wednesday. That could be a market moving event. We'll see how it plays out. But let's just take a look at some of these things technically and see where we're at. So NASDAQ, we had some weakness in Google. We had some weakness in Apple on Friday. Uh, NASDAQ is basically this 4,800 seems to be acting as a potential area of support. We pierced below it. We managed to recover that on Thursday, but now we closed basically at the low of the days on Friday. We'll see if we break down below. If we do break below 4,800, where is the next area of potential support? Could be at this 4687, basically 4,700, right in that range. We could find some support there. If we break that, it starts to get a little scary. Maybe we come down and test 4,600. Let's take a look at IWM and the IBB. So the IBB, let's start there first, closed at the low of the days on Friday. And I have to tell you, the IBB, look, we've been 265 failed to hold as support. The next area of real significant support could be somewhere in this 250 area, right? If we break below 250, if we take this out and we take out this trend line, I think it becomes very problematic for the biotech sector. And the reason I say that is because we would then be taking out the 200-week moving average, and we would also be taking out this long-term trend line. And then I think, things get pretty scary in the biotech sector. So you got to be cautious in that area. Could we potentially get some kind of a big snapback play? It's possible. Let me just take a look at something here real quick. I want to go to the different chart. So we're just now kind of approaching the lower Bollinger Band. If we break completely out of this lower Bollinger Band, maybe we get a snapback off of this 250 area. We'll see. See how it plays out. IWM. So, we were looking for IWM to close above 115. It actually wound up doing that. We had a nice little pop in the IWM. Let's go back to the daily. And then we were heading up into the 120 range. where we were likely to come into some resistance. We found some resistance actually at 118, which actually makes sense right here. Support, resistance, resistance. So came up into 118, pulling back, and now we are at 115, failed to hold as support. Now we're looking at 113 to see if that can hold as support. If 113 is unable to hold as support, it looks as though we could come down and test 110, somewhere in that range. So it's remains cautious in the small cap space as well. Mid caps, not looking a whole lot different from the IWM. Actually, mid caps, very key area. Testing this trend line right here. Testing this area of price support at 267, 268, 90, in that range. And if we break below, the next area of potential support looks to be somewhere around 256 or so, right? So mid caps still cautious. Let's take a look at the strength of the dollar, which has been weak. Let's take a look at that real quick. Came up into this trend line resistance, failed, pulling back. Now it looks as though maybe we come back and test this 2420 area, see if that holds as support. If not, maybe we come back down and test 24, which is, a pretty big area of support. Would not want to see that breach, but anything is possible. So if the dollar continues to weaken, you're likely to see gold and silver continue to show some strength. And it was interesting action in gold and silver last week. Actually, gold and silver had some decent moves, and the miners actually kind of took a little bit of a breather. So, but I still think this is an area where you're going to see a lot of volatility, a lot of action. There are short-term trading opportunities in silver and in gold, right? Coming up into resistance. Could this be a double top? It could be the beginning of a double top, possibly. If we take out 17 in silver with some conviction, I think you're going to see a pretty powerful break. So to the upside, so worth watching that level in SLV. Let's take a look at gold real quick. I had a big old pop and then pulled back. Now it's flirting with this 124 area as resistance. If the dollar continues to weaken, if there's fear in the marketplace, if the news of Brexit is bad, you're probably going to see people fly. The flight to safety. You can continue to see some strength in gold and silver, and of course that equates to strength in the miners, GDX, GDXJ, JNUG, and Nugget. Right, lots of travel room, lots of activity in those. So those you could be looking for some short-term trading opportunities. SMH, the semiconductors, look, we're still in an intermediate term downtrend. It looks as though maybe we're going to come down and test this 55, 54, 77 area as potential support. If we lose that, then I think we come down and test 53. I think you need to be cautious within the semiconductor space, even though AMD had a nice little move on Friday. That could get some follow through next week. S&P 500. 2050, 2049 basically is what we're looking to hold as support. If we break below 2050 or 2049, if we break below that with conviction, I think the next spot for us to tag is 2000. That would be our next area of potential support. The one area that was pretty interesting, let's take a look at the USO. Even though we had all this weakness in the USO, the energy names actually held up fairly well. And then we got a little bit of a bounce on Friday in oil. We get inventory numbers next week. We'll see how those come in. If they come in strong, if we have a big build, you're likely going to see oil start to move down. We are starting to see more rigs come online, right? So if you see a big build in oil, then we're likely going to see oil pull back. If you see a big drawdown in oil, then maybe we can continue to see strength, and that would give us opportunity to play some of the energy names, which, like I said, have held up fairly well, even though oil pulled back. So definitely something to keep an eye on for next week. I think that's probably one of the most intriguing sectors for next week is the energy sector. Volatility. So we had a nice big spike in volatility because of this Brexit thing. If the markets just chop around, you're not going to see a whole lot going on in volatility. If the Brexit poll numbers are extremely weak, we could see some action in the UVXY and also TVIX. But I would not hold these things through the Brexit vote. I would not hold them through. I mean, if just because the polls are showing they're going to be leaving, or nobody knows what the vote will actually be, and if you're in these volatility trades, you could get hurt pretty bad. So make sure you don't hold unless it's just a pure lotto position in through that vote. Energy. So here's the XLE, and this trend line has been holding fairly well. We're still in a short-term uptrend within the energy space. If oil starts to climb again, I think energy, like I said, could be a really good place to be. XLF not looking so hot, right? The financials, and that goes back to the Fed and their inability to do any kind of an interest rate raise. And that is, I think, concerning. So financials are not looking all that great. They are an area of potential support. We could see if we get a bounce here. If we break down, I think we actually come down and test somewhere in the 2150 area. But financials do not look all that healthy. We talked about Federal Express and the fact that they are reporting earnings. Sorry, that's the retail. So we're making lower highs, and if we make a lower low here, it could get problematic for transportation sector. We'll see what happens with the FedEx earnings. We've got some potential price support somewhere right around here, right around 43, right? 43, even 42.81, somewhere in that area. We break below, it looks like we then potentially come down, test 41.70, and then ultimately come down and maybe test somewhere around $40.32. So transportation still looks concerning. Retail, flirting with this trend line here. I mean, we are still managing a short-term uptrend. If this breaks below, it could get problematic for retail. There's just not a lot out there that makes me want to go out and get super long in a bunch of stuff, right? Let's see. Even aerospace and defense. Oh, wait a minute. Where are we at? Well, let's take a look at industrials real quick. Industrials actually pulling back a little bit to a potential area of support right around 55. Right, we've got some potential support here, price support at 55. We break below there, come down, test 53, 54 in that range. Let's see what's aerospace and defense has pulled back to an area of support. Some good looking charts in aerospace and defense. Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, Northrop Grumman all have some pretty nice looking charts. They're consolidating. LMT. right? Consolidating a bit. Got a pretty sweet looking setup there on LMT, but I mean, they even look like they're pulling back a little bit. RTN, where is it? RTN. And Northrop Grumman, where is Northrop? Nice consolidation there as well. So some pretty interesting looking charts in the aerospace and defense sector. And let's see what else we've got going on here. You know, one thing that is kind of catching my eye is the Russia ETF and a couple of Russian names. And those may be in my stocks to watch video for tomorrow. We'll see. Let's see what else we got going on. Home builders. So we've got home builders reporting. I think Lennar and KB Homes are reporting next week. That could be interesting for the home XHB, right? We're at a pretty key level of price support right here. If we break down below, if we break 32.60 or so with conviction, looks like we're coming back down potentially 31.61 or all the way down 30.57. But potential double top, right? Potential double top right there on home builders. So definitely some caution. We'll see what these earnings reports do for the space this week. And that's it. Listen, I'm not gonna drag this out. Bottom line is, I'm extremely cautious. Still moving into next week. We'll see what transpires with the Brexit vote and Janet Yellen next week. If we break down below the key levels of support in several of these indexes, it could be pretty challenging for the markets. Look for volatility to pick up. Pay close attention to the energy sector, gold and silver. Those are the areas we really want to pay attention to. One last thing, healthcare also, pulling back. It pulled back to a potential area of support, but it looks pretty weak. Looks as though coming down, maybe test the 60-65 area. So look, not a lot of sectors out there looking real attractive. I think we need to remain cautious. Remember that cash is a viable position. You don't have to trade every single day, and you don't have to be fully invested all the time. So make sure that you have a nice cash position. Let's wait until we get confirmation in one direction or the other before we make any significant moves. I will be doing stocks to watch tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. Vegas time on Ticker TV. If you have some stocks that you would like to get on the video session, email them to me, tweet them to me, and I'll do my best to get them on there. For those of you that can make it tomorrow, I'll see you first thing in the morning. And for those of you that can't, I'll see you all next week. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Be safe. Have fun. And I'll see you all next week.